It becomes, when you clear the stuff, you project a whole different energy. You project a presence. And when women respond to that polarity, because they can smell a man, they can smell that, almost literally. But you cannot reach this inner state of strength unless you've cleared the stuff. Let me tell you a really sad story about a man who had a lot of choice with women, a man who met a lot of women and was pretty good at getting physical with them, taught a lot of that stuff, and made them feel things they'd never felt before. This guy was never short for women. He had a different one in his bed as long as he wanted to. It wasn't his issue. That wasn't the problem. But he never looked at the stuff. He was using them as self-medication to cover over the pain. And these women would say crazy, they were crazy for this guy. They would say things like, "You can never deny me sex," or "It's been 3 hours since we've last had sex. What's wrong with me? Is anything wrong with you?" And they would say stuff like that. And this guy would just, enjoy that. But there would be an occasional night where one of those girls, for whatever reason, she might have not slept in 3 days, or maybe she had her period, or she was just, overworked, would just say, "I just want to cuddle." And any normal guy would just shrug it off and say, "Oh, no problem, honey. We'll just do it tomorrow, whatever." And not this guy, though. He was like going into an implosion, and it was almost like he felt so rejected and so shut down. He would create all kinds of drama. And that one night, these women really maybe just weren't tired. But the next night, he put so much pressure on them that they would somehow withhold sex too, for whatever reason. He'd push harder, and the more he did, the less they wanted to have sex with this guy. So eventually, he just killed relationship after relationship, needing more and more girls, crazier girls that wanted more sex just to cover that. And it completely messed up his life. And the real sad part of that story is that guy was me. It's a sad place to come from. And it was a place where I met Steve P. a few years ago. And he saw what I was going through. And he sat me down in the same chair that a few years later another Pua would sit in, Neil Strauss, you know him as Stahl, in his apartment in Alpine, and would slam me and would show me. We do exercises like the one I'm going to show you in a minute. And he'd show me how I'd linked up. He tranced me out, and he took me way back down. And I saw all of a sudden very clearly, not just intellectually, but deep emotionally, in trance, where I had linked up this dysfunction. It was when I was going through a divorce. We started naturally. When the relationship goes downhill, you have less and less sex. And I had linked up in my mind and in my heart that if a woman, for even one night, didn't want to have sex with me, that meant I was like, I should just roll over and die. I was worthless. I wasn't attractive to anyone. I would probably never have sex ever again with another woman. That's very neurotic. And it can happen even to people who have a lot of women and sex in their lives. And it wasn't until Steve worked on me and spent some time with me that I really saw this dysfunction. So we would spend time together, a lot of time. And a lot of time I just thought he was just talking to me. He would say funny things. We'd drive around and he'd make offhanded remarks and he'd slam me. And I remember the first time he did this, the second time I went and talked to Hypnotica and said, I don't think I can be hypnotized. I don't think I felt anything. I don't think I was in trance. And Hypnotica was like, whatever. The way he does that. And a lot of times hypnosis is not so much, it's not as you notice the temperature in the room change. It's none of that BS. Most of those guys don't even have any training that do that clinically. And what it is more, it's a way of thinking. It's almost like something you become. And when you do it many years, you will automatically do it to yourself. You will do it with women. You will be able to capture their imagination. We teach this stuff. And Steve was able to extract, through these methods, a lot of weird stuff. Changed my whole frame, my whole conversation, my inner dialogue, how I would approach people, women. He made me, for 1 month, he made me just, said, you can't have sex, not even with yourself. And you have to talk to a minimum of 12 to 15 people with no outcome. Just talk to them, just go out there. And he'd do all these crazy things that made no sense to me at the time. I was still trying to figure out tricks to get chicks. I was still needy, neurotic, trying to figure out what was wrong and so forth. And he just kept at it. So we spent months and months on and off together learning this stuff. And if you can learn this stuff too. It's not that complicated. It takes a while to learn it. But a lot of times when you do it enough, I don't even do formal inductions half the time. I just talk to people for a while. And the model for it is my inner spark of creator or higher self or subconscious makes a contract with whoever I'm working with, whether it's a girl or whether it's a client or whether it's a guy that needs help. And it allows them to do self-hypnosis that I just trigger. And that'll clear your stuff. So it's like layers of an onion. You peel them away one at a time. Just until, it's like that thing that Michelangelo was talking about, that statue of David. They asked him, how did you do the statue? How did you see this in this rough chunk of marble? He said, oh, I always see the angel or the David in there. I just know where to chip away and get rid of that marble around it. So you guys are all the same like that. We're all like that. We're all like works in progress. We're not totally finished. And it's just a matter of chipping away, getting rid of all that stuff until the true self can emerge eventually. And that's when women just respond to you powerfully in a whole different way.